Yeah, for sure.
So Saturn going into air
I know.
from being in its own sign in Earth.
But it's in its own sign in air.
True, true.
This is double.
I haven't felt anything. Have you felt anything? I'm not feeling, I'm not saying I haven't felt anything. What I'm saying is I haven't recognized that I felt anything. I haven't thought about it. I've just been kind of living by the seat of my pants this week.
I have seen it reflected. I've seen two things. I've seen the storylines of people around me, that people that I'm close to. I've seen that eclipse figure where I see the truth coming out, coming to life. We can even see that politically, right? You know, Trump really actually didn't win, and everybody has to be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Basically, and then that happened, and I can see in positive ways for some people, negative ways for other people, the truth of their situation has become inarguable.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's not like, well, you know, instead it's just like, this is plain, this is obvious, and obvious good for some, obvious not good for other. I mean, it just depends what you've got going on, but I see that probably more as the result of the end of Capricorn. Because it's been very definitive and very results oriented. The rubber has met the road, not necessarily in terms of what will happen because of it. I think that's going to play out in Aquarius.
Yeah.
But in terms of the situation is inarguable.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, maybe I have seen more of 29 degrees than I am seeing of 0 at this point. But of course, my Saturn is at 0, so maybe I'm in a blind spot.
Well, it was 0. It's 0 just today, right? Today,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I think what I've gotten from it is like, you know, earlier in the conversation I was, I don't know what to say, but what I've gotten from it is just like, oh, I know. Earlier in the conversation, I was like, oh, I'm not going to be scared. I made that choice, which feels like a very end of Capricorn choice to be like, I will not be scared. This is so
Mm-hmm.
and then what I see now, though, that I feel like is a big openness. That's what I see. Big open door. And I see that for other people.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I've seen, is that there's been the reckoning situation, which I really feel like is Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've seen just past that is the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Because although I'm thinking of three separate people situations now, just to make like little notes in my head, you know, although there's clarity in terms of what the situation is, there's not clarity in terms of then what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's
Yeah. As a general, that I see. Yeah.
you know, in terms of what it's going to mean, we could get associative, because that's what I always do when Saturn goes somewhere. I make a whole bunch of associations. I usually do a big post, but maybe we could just talk about it.
Like buzzwords and.
Yeah, because Saturn in Aquarius is, you know, it's science, and it's very rigid.
Yeah.
And the pressure that it's going to put on people is not it's not, you can't negotiate with it very well despite it being air. It's a fixed sign. It's not like Saturn in Aquarius, where if you talk a good game, you can gain. I mean, not like Saturn in Gemini, where if you talk
Yeah.
a good game, you gain a few extra inches or whatever.
Yeah.
There's nothing in it for style points or, you know.
What is relativism? There's no relativism in it.
And
It's
yeah,
it's provable or it's not provable.
what's interesting to me too about Saturn and Aquarius, which people don't like to acknowledge, is that especially Aquarians don't like to acknowledge, kind of a black and white thinker.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Aquarians in general are really big on not being black and white thinkers
Mm-hmm.
because they're able to understand complex systems, and because they think with such originality and precision. And all of those things are true. But those original thoughts, those complex systems, those, if, like sort of Rube Goldberg situations where it's all these different things that boil down to something else. And, often when you make the leap mentally, you don't even see the interior.
Mm-hmm.
Make the leap, and then later it can be mapped, it can be seen logically. But what happens is it often comes down to this or this. Just it just does,
Computer logic, off or on.
Yeah, or like even if it's complicated, I always think of co-ops with Aquarius because it's one of the most common Aquarian organizations that people have in their neighborhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's always a food co-op, which is purely Aquarius, and it's for the betterment of all and for the betterment of society, food, and all of that stuff. And it's cooperative. But one thing that everybody knows if you've ever joined a co-op or maybe just spent time shopping at one, it's rigid, it's dry, and they're not really going to make an exception. Like for when it's your turn,
Yeah.
and whatever the rules are, those are the rules. And if you want to change the rules, you have to get really pedantic. And
Good luck, Karen. You're not affecting this situation any by going to the manager because there is no manager.
right. And I feel like that's very Aquarius, where
Mm.
there is a goal defined, or not even a goal, but a principle. There's a principle held up. And then whatever shakes down under that, Aquarians can be kind of Machiavellian in things, to
Yeah.
justifies the means. And not always, of course, because people are altruistic, people are interested in the greater good. But I think Saturn in Aquarius, that's something to watch for, right? Is um, are we getting the end justifies the means, or are we getting it's really matters the process, what the process is, you know um, see that.
The whole good of the many outweighs the good of the one or the few.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
And doing right by the many can be really cold to the one or the few.
mhm, mhm,
Or they feel like they're left outside
mhm.
other than being a general part of a group.
Right. I mean, something that can happen, I hope, and I think that people can put their emphasis on with it is Saturn and Aquarius, of course, could mean being sure to include everyone, right? Aquarius
Yeah.
individual
Yeah,
being
every last one, because Saturn is very regimented and
right, sure not to leave anybody out based on what separates them. That can be a Saturn Aquarius move,
I like that distinction.
and that's something to build right in there. That's something to work for, is to make sure that everyone is included. But again, it's
Everyone's counted, as opposed to Capricorn Saturn, where you're only counted if you're productive,
mhm,
if you're doing the work.
mhm, yeah. I think Saturn and Aquarius is also going to bring us a lot of innovation, a lot of technological innovation. And with that square to Uranus and Taurus, all the stuff people are talking about being microchipped, whatever, which has already happened. But
It's like, you're a bit late for that, hun. Yeah.
or body modification, all that stuff, I think, fits, and can have a role. But I feel like the intellectual bit is strong. What's interesting? Let's think about this for a minute. Let's think about that contact, because it doesn't last forever. But with Saturn in
With Jupiter.
Aquarius, and square to
Uh,
Uranus,
yeah.
um, that contact that they're going to make, that they're already really making, is, you know, Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, right? So there's some type of, it's not just a conflict, it's a conflict and a marriage. It's a, it's a fight that is a wedding. It's not even a fight at a wedding. Like it's a wedding fight.
Well, particularly with Taurus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Taurus is how you.
Weddings are often about resources, and we're wedding the resources
Mm-hmm.
to the group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so you know, some of that will look like revolution. I think possibly in a good way. I mean, it could be in a bad way too, but some of that, like a natural fit there, is.
Sorry, I have these horror stories that I watch, and one of the lines uh, from one of them is good, bad. I'm the one with the gun. So,
It's pretty.
uh,
Uh-huh.
uh, what's good, what's bad. What's good for one person is bad for another person, and there's a square for you.
Mm-hmm.
What's good and what's bad is only measured for each person after it's done.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting too because what we're seeing here, right? And we're seeing this 200-year cycle, and you know, because really soon Jupiter and Saturn will make that conjunction
Mhm.
in Aquarius and air. We'll kick off our 200 years of air conjunctions every 20 years. Um, and but what we're seeing, I think, that is interesting is that so we've had 200 years of Earth. There was one air conjunction. They always do like a little preview, and in the 80s there was that one. I think it was a conjunction Libra. That was like a preview for this time. But so we'll have 200 years of air now after having 200 years of Earth, and with the Earth signs, it was all about the resources. And so what's interesting now is that, of course, with planets, you can't just snap over into like, oh, but now it's air, so we don't anymore. We've been, fighting about gold and land and oil, and now fuck gold and land and oil.
Mhm.
We're not going to do that exactly. We sort of are. I mean, it will take a back burner to brainwashing and information, which has been, ever since Pluto went through Sagittarius and killed journalism. That's been a,
Yeah.
thing. So that will become more and more of a thing. What do you believe? Who's controlling the information that you receive? And everybody can see that coming now. But what I'm trying to say about this marriage is we're still processing the resources with Uranus ruling that Aquarius energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having it be in Taurus, where Taurus is, it's the stuff, man. Like it's absolutely the stuff and how you value it, and what your vision of. Um, this is funny because it's sort of a Virgo thing, but I feel like it's in Taurus a lot too, and people don't always see it there, which is health. Taurus likes to feel like a healthy animal,
Mm-hmm.
just in terms of like I'm eating, I'm sleeping, I'm moving around to the amount that I want to, whatever it is, and having that both emphasis and disruption there, saying like, okay, maybe you're not able, maybe those systems are disrupted, those value health, sort of uh, sorry, wholesome. Taurus is the springtime, right? When everything's,
Mm-hmm.
little bunnies. Um, and those systems being interrupted, those systems being pressed,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I think that's an interesting piece because we're not gonna suddenly just not care about values. We're gonna have this conflict for a while.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Uranus will be coming to the North Node, and the North Node will be coming to Uranus. Um, so that's where we should be putting our attention.
Right, is something new. I mean, and that in that way they back each other up completely because, you know, even though Saturn is the old man, Jupiter will join him there to say this time it has to be something new.
Mhm.
You know, we're not gonna um how do I say, like the co-op's already been invented. You know, like, we're not
Yeah.
gonna be like, yeah, well, wouldn't it be nice to have some more local or, you know, be better organized locally, politically? I mean, I think that will happen, but I
Mhm.
don't think that's all that will happen.
I wonder, I mean, and this is just pure conjecture that never occurred to me until this moment, but I wonder if there won't be, um, that we'll come to know the truth behind some of the things that have been unknowns in the past.
Mhm.
Like we were talking about Sasquatch the other day.
Right.
And like, and Area 51, is there anything to that? And, you know, I'm kind of the opinion that it seems really short-sighted to think that there aren't aliens. I
Well, of
mean,
course,
I
yeah.
mean aliens. It's like we're it, you know, but
That there's not other styles of life forms.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, beyond what we think about as far as being from here.
Mhm.
I'm thinking that there could be some incontrovertible proof, you know, because Saturn is proofs
Mhm.
in math.
Is is you know, truth to and law, you know, and
Mhm.
that,
Particularly with Jupiter rolling over it all too,
yeah, is one thing. There's
you know, laying the path for Saturn to go.
Mhm. Mhm. Somebody said in passing, and then I didn't look at the charts, that Jupiter is gonna. I mean, I know it takes about a year, but is gonna motor really quick right through this, hit Pisces, and then
I was going to say, it's a really short amount of time that Jupiter spends in Aquarius.
yeah, I kind of want to look. I'm gonna pull up that
Look at it.
while we're talking because I haven't really tracked it. Like I know that's true, but I haven't tracked it visually. Just to kind of see because I mean it has to be a year more or less, but it must go through hit Pisces and go back. And Jupiter,
Yeah, it goes far enough into Pisces that when it goes back, it isn't there for very long.
let me see how it goes. What a funny year. Look at April.
At least that's what I remember.
Okay, no, it's still in Aquarius in April. So let's see May. May it's at one, like by the end of May, it's at one Pisces. So we have until springtime, until May, and then and let's see, how long does it spend in Pisces? Okay, it only just goes in. It's retrograde already at 2 degrees Pisces. Okay, that makes more
Is
sense.
that what it is?
Yeah, by
I can't
July,
remember, but I just remember thinking it was a really quick.
by
Uh,
July we're back at 29 Aquarius. But it goes May, and then it spends the summer, um, or the first part of the summer. That's interesting though because Jupiter in Pisces is beautiful. Right?
mm-hmm.
I mean, it lets really silly, like loopy things happen. I feel like Jupiter in Pisces, you know, where almost anything's possible.
Yeah.
Because you know that's the old ruler before Neptune.
Yeah.
Is Jupiter, and it's a door opener there. And the doors that Pisces likes to open are trippy doors. I like those doors actually. Um, that'll be interesting to see. And then it goes back and kind of wraps it up. So we definitely get a preview. I mean, we always do, but it doesn't always retrograde out of its area so much. I think that's actually nice for us, weirdly enough, to have that little Pisces moment.
It's it's my seventh house, the third decan of Aquarius, and then most of Pisces.
Hmm. We're gonna have hot dates.
Yeah, probably not.
We're gonna have the option.
Uh,
Who's gonna ask you to do some business? Who knows?
I'd probably just be running my big mouth and people will be yelling at me. That's probably
Possible too. You can get enemies or partners. Yeah.
yeah, I can't imagine that reality at this point. What is it? It's been, what, Jupiter must have been about 12 years ago. It's 2020, so like.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, then I stand by what I said.
I think the divorce the last time that Jupiter was in my seventh house.
That's a whole other thing too.
Yeah.
Misconceptions. When Jupiter goes to
But Uranus was there too.
Mhm.
So
Mhm. But Jupiter is a breakup planet. I'm just gonna put that
yeah.
out.
Oh, it's also a car wreck planet. Um, propel you right into a brick wall.
Yeah, yeah. And Jupiter, I mean, Jupiter is when, with Jupiter going through your seventh, particularly, it's when people think, well, something must be better.
Yeah, and look at all these options I have.
Right. Or, well, if this doesn't work out, I'll do this and this, and maybe just do that and that and that. Maybe, the doors. It's definitely a grass is greener, doors open.
It depends on who you are too. I mean, if you're likely to spin out with a big push, then you're going to spin out. And if you're the kind of person who is thoughtful and uh, makes good choices, unlike me.
It can happen either way. I don't want to scare anybody who's got Jupiter because the fact is, of course, it can be a lovely time where you grow with your partner, where you take on new, sort of expansion activities together, where
Absolutely. And look, if you're a wreck like me, somebody might want to come and take you on and mentor you too. So
right. I mean, yeah, it could be that you could have somebody come into your life who really opens doors for you in a different way. You could expand your relationship, not negatively. But I just want to point out it's neither good nor bad. It's 50-50 there, I think.
let me tell you, my divorce was the best thing that ever happened to me. So
Solid. That's
yeah.
And the other thing people forget about Jupiter too is that Jupiter conjunct your sun. A lot of if people are dying, sometimes they die when Jupiter hits their sun. That's to expand into reality. It will not make you die. Nobody should think that. It has no negative impacts like that. But
It's going to accelerate what's going on with you.
if you're right at death's door, that Jupiter passing may be a moment where you expand.
The interesting thing, is going to be when Jupiter transits sextile to Pluto, and I don't know when that is, but that will be some great energy. That's Phoenix energy. And from Pisces, that's Phoenix energy with the divine.
What's trippy to me, I mean, I know this is going to sound
because that should be next year. I would think that would be next year, 2022. I mean, we're almost into this next year, so.
January 2022, we've got Jupiter at 2 degrees Pisces. Let me see how it gets going. Yeah, right. That sextile won't come till the end, though. I mean, Pluto is all along. Let me see when it gets there.
But that's something that will be good for water signs and Capricorn.
Yeah, there's okay, so April 28th, 2022, we've got Capricorn Pluto at 28 degrees, sextile a Jupiter Venus conjunction at 27 to 25, and with Neptune at 24. So we've got Neptune, Venus, Jupiter sextile there, and then that is also the sextile the North Node in Taurus, which has just gotten to 28 Taurus. Or no, it's not. North Node's at 22 Taurus. It's sextile Mercury at 28 Taurus.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a random moment. Oh, but it's weird. That day is weird because it's also exact conjunction Moon Chiron in the middle of the day, 13 Aries, which aspects absolutely nothing.
That aspect's my worst aspect.
uh,
My moon Venus.
yeah. So that's just funny. But,
Well, good for me. Got mine.
yeah, it will make that. It will make that sextile. We're looking at April, basically, and April 2022.
I will have forgotten about that by the time it rolls around, but it's nice to know that I have something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm. It seems silly, but it's hard for me to just wrap my brain around the fact that things just keep going on, resembling less and less and less of anything we've trained for. Uh, which I feel like is part of the Saturn and Aquarius experience, is that your
Yeah.
previous experience has not prepared you. And I think that's a great sort of analogy for Saturn and Aquarius,
Yeah.
that you arrive with unrelated training. Let's say. And I think we all do now,
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah.
Like that the stuff that we worked hard for and hard on, not that it won't come to fruition. I think in individual people's lives, of course it will.
Mm-hmm.
People, who put in the work will continue to reap benefits and all that jazz. But on a fundamental sort of consciousness level, what we're approaching looks like a very important surprise, which we cannot be prepared for. And I think that will play out over 2.5 years. It's the cycle. And I think Jupiter coming in with Saturn along with that says it's somewhere between a blessing and a con, I think, because what it says is there will be something good for you here. There will be something good in this. Open yourself up to this energy rather than just having Saturn on its own come through and say, you're an outcast. This is Aquarius vibes. You're an outcast. You're alone in this. You've just endured all kinds of like heinous practical shit from Capricorn, and now you can do it intellectually and feel alienated in Aquarius. Right. And so instead of just getting that, Jupiter says, there's something here for you. There's something here for you. There's a door to higher understanding. There's kind of depends where it hits your chart, what you might actually see as being tangibly there for you. But there's it's almost like a formula for a greater good. There's a better structure coming because Capricorn
Pro-social.
Capricorn is hierarchical every time. Capricorn is nothing but a pyramid. Like, or who's the boss? Capricorn plays. Is it me? Is it you? Is it me? Is it you? And when you're with somebody, unless you really have a lot of respect for each other, that Capricorn, if that Capricorn dynamic is at play, what everybody wants to just know is who has the final word.
Yeah.
Is it me or is it you? And then Capricorn can have respect for their boss and they can have respect for the person below them. But there's
right. But you're not on the same level.
Right. No, there has to be somebody's better. And that's, I remember having to refer to that. That's not my favorite dynamic, but I remember having to refer to that a lot. Raising kids, one of whom is a Capricorn, and being like, okay, he needs to know, this is that he's not the boss in this situation. That's the most important thing I can convey, because that's a Capricorn question. It just is. And so now we get to, and if you look at sort of the discussion of politics, the discussion, just the general discussion that people are having culturally, that's the big question: who's the boss? And we're coming to the end of that, right? Where the question becomes, what better structure can we have? How can we work to enact this better structure. And I think that's very much Aquarius.
Well, and Jupiter would add in wit and kind of social graces that wouldn't necessarily just be there along with Saturn.
I don't think of Jupiter as having any social graces, but
I think of it as, because I think of humor as being a social grace.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
to not be clownish, but to be, what would the word be?
These things up. It's levity for sure.
Yeah. As opposed to like the Arturian round table, you've got the Algonquin round table.
I don't know what. Oh, I do know. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. It's like we're all about chivalry and da 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 da. Like, and then this person is all about giving it to you. So, yeah.
Well, and Jupiter.
A little more Dorothy Parker, a little less Guinevere.
Mm-hmm. And Jupiter is also. I always think of Ganesh with Jupiter because it's the remover of obstacles and the person who opens, or not person, the elephant who opens doors. And Ganesh rides on a mouse, right? It's this enormous elephant who rides on a mouse, and that construct being, the tremendous sort of buoyancy,
Yeah.
and the tremendous lightness and sort of ridiculousness and like a little bit detached, which I think of as very Sagittarian, very Pisces energy, which, are ruled by Jupiter, where if you step back a little, everything gets so much lighter and so many doors can open. You can see out, nowhere near as close because you can't, without that vision of like a future, because Jupiter, of course, brings a future, then you can imagine. Because it's, like when you're working with somebody who's really depressed or just stuck, and you say, well, we could move this piece, and they're like, that piece can't move. Oh, what about this one could, what about
Nope, not that one.
And so you wind up saying, okay, well, if we can't move any of these pieces, I guess we just have to accept that this is the reality. And Jupiter is what allows you to say, I don't know what the outcome of this may be, but I will open one door, any door. And I think Jupiter is going to do that in Aquarius, where we are able to envision a future.
Can light a fire and lift too.
Yeah, and that we can envision something that goes along with the new structure that might be beneficial. So it's not just new structure, new Saturn vibe continues. I mean, Saturn's always somewhere, but we've had so much because of the rest of the planets in Capricorn, because of the emphasis, the cardinal emphasis of the chart. We've really had a lot. And I think this is going to help people to see something they might like as possible, which I think is neat.
It'll help people move along too, rather than get stuck.
Yeah, so it's not just like, okay, we don't have these material resources. Okay, we don't have these intellectual resources either. Right? Nothing. Jupiter says, okay, there is some abundance here. There is at least some new ways to solve problems, basically.
Now I know how dumb I am. It's just like, yeah.
Oh.
It's like, whatever you got it in spades. Yeah. It's like, I can work with that. Now I know I'm dumb. I can work with that. We can move on from this part. Yeah. More of whatever you're getting.
Yeah, but also that it could be good, that what's new.
Yeah.
Because I think there's some fatigue, generally speaking, where people feel that all of the new things have been bad, let's say. And there's some, like, even when I look at the lives that of people that I'm closest to, there's a sense, even as things are changing, that of holding back, of not wanting to enter that next step, whatever it is, more completely, because everything has been so terrible. Can we just wait? Can we just wait it out?
Yeah.
And I think today and the next couple days are the very last actual moments of that energy. I think that when we see Jupiter hit, especially with the solstice vibes, when we see Jupiter and Saturn come together in Aquarius, I think it gets constructed that there's something there, that not every new thing is bad, that some change could happen and the change could be good. Because, with Jupiter and Capricorn, people have been trying to enact very practical, very literal, very considered, and sort of solution-based changes, I think, with their Jupiter. They made a plan. I can use myself as an example. I opened a bakery with that, for very specific reasons. I had a very Capricorn, it was business, those kinds of things happened, and it was all very linear and very like, this is who this person is in this situation. This is who I am. This is all, it was all mapped out. And what happened was Pluto and Saturn said, like, no, no, like, in a very, Plutonian vibes of like, absolutely not. And, I think that happened to a lot of people's Jupiter stuff. Not that there was no positive takeaway, but that the plans that you were trying to enact, which were also working with Capricorn energy, methodical, hierarchical, being patient. I think that some of those you're being rewarded now for some of that. I don't think that that means you won't get your good job Saturn presence, on his way out. I think you do get those rewards, but in terms of the specifics, I think in many cases Pluto has made sure you don't.
Ran up against a brick wall there. Yeah. All of the future forward thinking and moving forward, thinking fast, having a good philosophy about things and taking things into account right up to the end there. Yeah.
Right. And I think what will happen is that that's becomes less the point, basically, that you still get your presence, you did work really hard, you built that muscle. You can't unbuild a muscle. If you've endured something horrendous, you have that strength.
Still got the strength, still got the skill.
Yeah. And I don't think anything can discount that, but it's a definite, it's not a plot twist. There's no twist to it. It's simply an alternate, Aquarius is an alternate dimension. It's simply like, no, now something new. And with coming, it says it doesn't imply all of the same closed doors. Pluto's still in Capricorn. Pluto's still going to shut down Capricorn stuff. He's still going to wrecking businesses and dismantling capitalism in a certain level, even as it amplifies capitalism, because that's what it does. Pluto brings things to extremes, the absolute polarities that they could possibly be at until they cease. And, and that's the function. I think we need it. But having Jupiter move out of that, that's big, I think. And even though it's traveling with Saturn, so it says, okay, we're going to build something new. I think I don't.
An unexplored foundation.
And I think the fact that Pluto isn't coming too means that it may go somewhere. It may have different kind of legs than what we had before.
Jupiter's a good explorer. That's a good combination.
Yeah. And I do think it's on the upside downside, my Earth planets are showing here, because I was about to say I do think it's an experiment, as though experiment was a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think experiment's a good thing.
It is a good thing. I just think it's funny that I was going to be like, shake my head, it's an experiment.
Experimentation is how you find out if something is um, a proven truth. It's how you prove
Right.
a fact. You have to experiment.
No, I think the reason I also feel that way is not just my own personal earth signs, but also because so many people have been through so much. A lot of people are really at their wits' end. And so when you put experiment in there, everybody's like,
Yeah. It sounds frightening because it involves the unknown, but it's what takes the unknown into the known.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would say that's the combination of Aquarius and Saturn. And
Yeah.
then propelled there by Jupiter.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's what is needed, right? That to value that a new way of thinking and a new structural analysis, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we will have that for sure.
It's a new arena, and the structure is untested. I mean, you don't even know where you're going to put the structure. You've got to test out where you're going to, what form this is going to take, because we're dealing with form.
Yeah.
Find out what the rules are by pushing the rules and the boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So at the beginning, that's more at the beginning kind of thing. Just figuring out what the properties of the situation are. And we don't even know yet.
It's true, but everybody should look really, really clearly as much as you can. Do that experiment where you take everything that happens for a couple weeks as an oracle, and just see what you get. Because when Saturn makes an ingress into a sign, and this, he's been there before, but it was sort of a run up, and there was a lot going on
Mhm.
at that time. And I feel like now it's very clear, it's very open to see. Just look around you and see what is activated in your life, because those will be some of the themes, like 100%.
Mhm.
Whether or not whatever's happening continues, who knows? Because it is an experiment. But whatever themes you're seeing in your life show up, that's your clue. Because those
Well, and that's triangulation, is you have to have more than one, more than two. You have to get as many dimensions as you're going for. That's how many points in space that you have to experience before you can get an idea of what's going on.
Mhm. But I think, I always try to do that when Saturn changes signs, is to kind of take the temperature, not only for myself, but generally what's going on, because it's clearest in the beginning and in the end. So we should be getting our Capricorn messages now very clearly, whatever they are. And we should be getting our Saturn messages too, and our Jupiter messages, because it'll give you when it leaves the sign, it will give you the gift, whatever kind of gift you're going to get from it. And when it starts the new sign, we'll definitely give you the information of what,
Mhm.
or, you know. So that's a good time to just look and see what's activated. Yeah.
I feel like for me right now, I'm solidifying the possibility of a new story.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm finishing up with the old story, I'm looking at the possibilities for a new story rather than, being all back in Capricorn where we got to plan this out. And I've got all these sources, and I've got this one here, and I've got it laid out. And I may not have the exact plan, but I know where I'm going with the planning. I kind of have realized at this point that I did that planning to build the muscle to go on to a fresh book here.
I think that's the deal.
Yeah.
That's
A lot of that's getting thrown out, but it was the planning that put me in the right, state in life in
Mhm.
order to be able to clean slate it
Mhm.
and create something new.
And also the fact that, so many people had like a zero sum game out of everything that they've just been through, um, whatever they've planned. I think uh, it gives people, so starting something, especially Aquarius vibes, something totally unknown, a whole new chapter. You don't know what it is, you don't even know what it's about. Um, you have to be ready to um, to accept it if it absolutely fails. And I think getting into that mind state, we've all had a crash course in that mind state, in terms of, Jupiter going to Capricorn and saying, okay, how are you going to map this? How are you going to, plot what course you take? Just try, just keep trying, just try again, keep trying. And, the fact that most people did not, whether they saw achievement or not, they did not get their storyline arc played out.
Nobody had this, as their possibility.
Right, with COVID and just so many different things shifting. And I think everybody had to reconcile with the idea that it may not work, even if it wound up working for them,
Mm-hmm.
even if it did work.
But the specific way they envisioned it didn't happen.
And everybody had to go through that moment, I think, of loss. I don't think there's anyone, because, all these Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto and Capricorn went through everyone's chart somewhere. I don't think there's anyone who didn't experience a certain kind of death or loss that they had to reckon with and say, I accept this loss and accept it. Even if then it regenerated, even if the story continued, you had to hit a moment where you did not get what you wanted. And I think what it makes me think of is like, you know, when people are breaking the law or whatever, my brother used to always be like, well, you have to come to terms with if you're willing to go to prison for that. And if you are, go ahead. Like, okay. And I think, or if you're willing to die for whatever it is, if you are willing to die, then you're good to go. And I think that we've all had to have that experience of what is the ultimate, almost valuation of your life. What is the ultimate, we all are very much aware that we're not going to live forever, just pandemically aware that we're not going to live forever. And specifically, wherever that crisis hit you, aware that you're not going to live forever, ever, whether it was your health or somebody else's health or not health related, maybe it was monetary, maybe whatever it was, there was some moment I think that everybody had to go through where they had to come to terms with the meaning uh, of of uh, of existence in a way. I mean, that sounds awfully big, but I don't even mean like what it means, but that it doesn't last. Pluto and
Mm-hmm.
that you're gonna die. Uh,
No matter what you've built up, no matter what your reputation is, and the structures that you think that you've got, they're all subject to forces more powerful than you as an individual.
yeah, and I mean that's Pluto's gift every time anyway. Is he's like, can I have that? because I don't think you need it, and
You don't need that. Whoop.
yeah, and I think that the biggest blessing I find that you get out of those strong Pluto transits, right, is the ability to understand how how little externally you need and how much internally you need. And
Mm-hmm.
that's from all of those bully planets, basically, from Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, but particularly, it's particularly acute from Pluto, where you really see what you've got inside. You become aware of what you have if you don't have anything else. And I think that space that we've been forced to, that we've been subjected to, that we've been forced to inhabit, has prepared everybody for big risks,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting. And I think real, for really stepping into the unknown, because it's not a situation where you can negotiate, where you say, well, if I get this, I will also accept that. But I don't want,
Yeah.
do, which is very Capricorn, saying like, I only want this job if I can be the boss, or okay, I'll be second in command, but I want a window in my office, or whatever, whatever it is, where it's a physical negotiation. And I think that's stripped, where you've had to come to terms with what is the bottom line. So in a way, it's some real primer for Aquarian times, for the unknown, and for stepping into, I think of like we're all stepping into like you were talking about aliens, like an alien spaceship, where we're stepping into the alien structure, let's say.
Yeah.
Like, what the structure is this? And with the knowledge then of what actually matters. I mean, I feel like that's the part that's been added. So if we look at this, in the most positive way, if you went without that knowledge, you would lose your way much, much more easily. You would lose your way. Anybody would. They wouldn't know where they can be pushed and where they couldn't, or what the essential bit is.
Mm-hmm. Trained up.
Yeah, for sure. As you were saying.
Yeah. I think, so this is not something that terrifically interests me, but because I'm more interested in things that have something to do with me. But the obvious thing, over the course of this transit, is finding out the limits and what structures we need to have in place to make us function as a collective.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And to make us all individually invested in being part of a group that makes things function. That's not sexy at all. It's just so unsexy.
No, it just makes me think about, things that change the world for the better, which is
Well, and when you've got those great boundaries in place in the collective, then you can individually flourish a lot better.
And a lot of people, I think, have hit a wall in terms of capitalism, which is Capricorn. What they really think and what they really don't think, or what they're willing to endorse and what they're not willing to endorse, or what, I think that the more cartoonish things become, the easier it is to draw those lines. And I think that's a gift.
Yeah.
That's a
Cartoonish. Things are